Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, welcome, welcome. 𝗠𝗶 𝗶𝗺𝗺 here from the Sales Mastery Company. And today we're talking about minimizing team conflict. This is one of the most important areas of management and business ownership that people need to learn compared to those that actually learn it. Typically, we do not assume that conflict's going to happen a lot. We almost have this wishful thinking, pie in the sky type approach of, you know what, if we've got core values in place, if we get our recruitment strategy right, there won't be any conflict, right? Well, let's just talk about the fundamentals of why today's topic is so critical. Business is tough. I remember learning international business with French in a bilingual business degree a couple of decades ago and being told that only 20% of businesses survive the first 5 years of their existence since the startup phase. Well, then when I moved to Australasia 20 years ago, what I found out was only 8% of businesses that start typically make it to the 5-year phase. So it suddenly got 2.5 times more challenging. Think about lining up 24 kids in a school classroom, whether that's primary or secondary school, and saying to them, if all of you went and started a business somewhere in Australia or New Zealand, typically 2 of you will survive and pretty much everyone else is going to fail. I mean, those hit rates are just ridiculous when you stop and think about it. The reality about this is conflict and challenge is always there. Pressures is always there, regardless of global pandemics, invasions of Eastern Europe, regardless of any other difficulties for supply chain management and everything else. Business is hard, and with business being hard, there's going to be pressure, and with pressure there will be conflict. There's going to be conflict on occasions between your sales team and your customers. There'll be conflict on occasions between your operations and procurement teams and your suppliers, and yes, there will be conflict within your team. So hopefully register for today's live session in advance. If not, send us an email to admin@salesmasterycompany.com and ask them for the workbook which says minimizing team conflict. That's what today's document is. This is what today's document looks like. Minimizing conflict. How can you work better as a team? It's all about us being proactive and finding ways to move forward as a team. So today I'm going to make the assumption that you are a sales manager, a marketing manager, a business owner, an operations manager, or simply you're the most experienced person in the team, and therefore you're the senior person leading conflict. But if you're not one of those types of job titles, remember, conflict is something you're going to have with pressure. So you might simply be a salesperson, part of a sales team, a marketer, part of a marketing team. You might work in operations, but not lead operations. Conflict is there, and it's all about stepping up and leading where possible. So let's go through a couple of key things. The second page in the work document is there with just a bit of a warm greeting from myself and the rest of our team at the Sales Mastery Company. Let's look into this straight away. We typically try to make these sessions 15 minutes or less. So conflicts, as I said before, are unavoidable, and they exist both internally and externally. At the same time, it's about us making the use of these conflicts. Remember, sometimes conflict comes simply because 2 people misunderstand each other, or 2 people who are equally passionate for the business both have great ideas of how we move the business forward. And out of us resolving peacefully or in a win-win outcome, the conflict or dispute, the outcomes for the business could be massive breakthroughs. So conflict in many cases is required, often because people are passionate about a different way forward. They both want what's best for the team. They both want what's best for the business. And so we should embrace it and enhance it and utilize it rather than simply try to avoid it. So it's going to come up. Often it can lead to positive breakthroughs, so we've got to find a way to deal with it. I'm going to walk you through a process today, which is something when we've been coaching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of managers around the world over the last couple of decades. Actually, how do you deal with it when it arises? Because it will arise. So again, avoiding conflict might be avoiding that tough conversation that needs to be had. It might be avoiding that breakthrough opportunity that should be available to you if you're positive around it. So let's look through. So whether this is you leading a team through conflict or you, I'm going to focus on you right now because the chances are you've just found yourself in a conflict situation over the last 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever that happens to be. The first thing is, before you go in to have a meeting with a team member between you and a colleague, you and a manager, or whomever it is, just stop and think about what is the situation and what are my feelings as well as my thoughts about the situation. That's about preparation. That's why we don't say, right, we've got a dispute, let's jump into it. You've got to take the time to settle yourself. and to separate head and heart. We're emotionally driven beings, and we're also thought-driven beings. And you need to sit down and go, why do I feel the way I feel? Why do I think the way I think? Two different things, remember. Number two, what we need to do if we're going through a conflict management process, obviously today is just a short, sharp view on that. There's mediators who are experts around the world, but they might take you 4 hours to explain this to you, or maybe a 1 or 2 day workshop to handle this. We've got to obtain agreements with people about how the process is going to be. So that might be sitting down and saying to them, listen, before we have the discussion of how we resolve this dispute or this conflict, then can we agree that we're going to meet in 4 hours time, or meet tomorrow morning? We'll take half an hour together. We'll both prepare what our thoughts are, both think about what our outcomes can be. Then we'll implement what we agree at that meeting, and then we'll do a review 2 weeks later. Whatever that happens to be, agree the process, because instantly there's a foundation. You've already committed time and you've reached some agreement, not necessarily agreement on the dispute, but agreement on the process. Number three, before you jump in and start saying, you didn't do this and you didn't do that, you've got to start by both people, or all three parties, if it's you and two colleagues all in dispute together, you've got to all state your current position. So this is how I viewed it. This is how I see the circumstance. Everyone gets to speak without interruption. That might only take 30 seconds or a minute, but at least having taken some time out, diffused the heat out of today's argument, when you sit down, the chances are in 30 seconds to 60 seconds, everybody should be able to state, this is my impression of it. So that's step three. Step four then, during the conversation, you need to have at least acknowledged what everyone else said. So the best way, if it's you and another party who've had a dispute, is after they've said what they've said, you should repeat it or restate it back to them. That does two things. Again, diffusing the emotion. Number one, it says, I respect you and I've heard you and I'm on the same page with you. Not I'm in agreement with you, but I'm on the same page in terms of I acknowledge that's what you said. Number five, then we bring up what the issues or the disputes or the feelings around it. And we need to have a wide-ranging discussion where we take it in turn to speak. Something I've seen people do in the days of Lord of the Flies, from memory of studying it as a school book 3 decades ago. I recall that was a conch. Whoever held the conch shell got the opportunity to speak. I don't mind if you sit there with a silver spoon or a wooden spoon and hand it to one another, who speaks next. But the key point around this is when they are speaking post-dispute, you say nothing. And after they've spoken, you say to them these words: thank you, that makes sense, or thank you, I've heard what you said. And then you can voice yours. And this is going to be the tit for tat conversation. You speak, they speak, they speak, you speak. And you're going to go through that cycle for as long as it takes, until eventually you'll get to a situation where you can reach some sort of consensus or compromise we often talk about. Obviously, when we're coaching and training people in negotiation training, that's the discussion phase of negotiation training. And today we're focused on negotiating with a colleague. Before you wrap up the meeting, we've got to summarize any key points and any deadlines around what the solution agreement actually is. And both parties have got to do that. You can't have one person say, well, I'm more senior, I'm going to say how we're going to do it from here. Just like we started, where you stated your positions and then recapped on those, it's the same at the end. So you'd say, okay, I think we've reached some sort of agreement. So moving forward, I'm going to try to speak to you in this manner. And moving forward, you're trying to give me some advance notice on those things. And moving forward, we both need to make sure that John or Jane does X, Y, and Z. Do you agree? Or what is your understanding of next steps? And you need to make sure they say the same words as you. They also say, yes, I agree with you. I will do this and you will do that. So it's very important. It seems pointless because you think you've reached agreement, but the chances are a dispute is going to show its ugly head in a week's time or in a month's time if you don't state what the outcomes are and you don't make sure they state it back, as opposed to, yep, cheers, I agree. Again, very important step around that. Then, of course, there needs to be some degree of accountability and follow-up moving forward. So this might be from a third-party colleague, or it might be that in a week, or as I said before, you might pre-book in 2 weeks' time that you and I are going to sit down and review what improvements did we make. We're not saying it'll be fixed forever, but what improvements did we make? So we book it into the calendar now. Instant accountability. When we're coaching people in our Sales Mastery Academy, it's all about accountability. It's not a program to train people. It's a program to make people implement and take accountability for what they're going to do. Well, that's what I'm suggesting to you right now. Make sure you've got a meeting in 2 weeks' time with or without a third party where you both know we're going to be reviewed. Because guess what? It's like having the police watch you or stalk your home. You know someone's watching, so you will probably hold yourself to higher standards. The moment you hold yourself to higher standards, they'll think, well, you're doing it, I guess I should too. And when you watch them, you'll think, well, they're doing it, I guess I should too. And I don't want to be the one who blinks first or lowers my standards first. So booking in that step of accountability is critical. Here's the mistake by most people. We sit down, we do not listen to one another, we talk at one another, and one party says, this is how I think it should be moving forward, and the other party loosely says, I'm sick of this argument, yes, I might as well agree with it, and there's zero accountability. That's the pathway most families, most leaders, most businesses, even sports teams on occasions take. Please avoid that. So in summary, in that discussion phase, please remember 2 key things. Number 1, you need to attack the dispute, the conversation, the situation, the interest or interests of each party, and what the circumstances were. You're not allowed to attack the person, and you're not allowed to be taking some higher than thou almighty soapbox type scenario to use as an opportunity to convince them of your life choices. This is about remembering we are here professionally to serve the greater good of the business. An added tip I would give you is at the start of the meeting, if you think it's appropriate, if you're a very values-based organization, which most of our clients around the world are, is to restate the mission or the purpose of the whole company, maybe the vision for the whole company. So remember, we're here to achieve that as a team. And then number 2, maybe restate the core values, because those are the ones by which we communicate. So again, the core values are a nice behavior around that. But put really simply, don't attack the person, but you can attack the issue or the situation or the dispute or the letdown or the breakdown or whatever it is. And don't focus around this is my position and these are my principles. We have a dispute to resolve. We're not judging people by this, and we're not talking about values by this. We both serve the values of the company. And then number 3, we're trying to find win-win outcomes. Otherwise, both parties won't accept it. If it's a win and a loss, the chances are the loser will not accept it. As 𝗠𝗶h 𝗶𝗺 said in his amazing book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, if it's a win-lose outcome, the relationship often ends up lose-lose. So we've got to achieve a win-win outcome, and we've got to achieve it where everybody felt heard. That is what fairness is about. Fairness is not about everybody wins equally, just like in sport, or the thing that drives me nuts in parenting when everybody says, oh, guess what? It's your turn to be player of the day. If today wasn't your day, you're not player of the day, in my view, because in sales, that's not the case. In life, it's not the case. In politics, it's not the case. Why is it we're saying to school children, everybody's a winner? They're not a winner. Participation deserves reward, but just call it that. It's participation. Well, if you do not get there with an element of fairness where everybody feels heard, it's not fairness. But fairness isn't, well, we had a dispute last week and I won, now it's your turn to win, because that's not how it works. Winners win more often. In fact, 20% of the world's population wins 80% of the success prizes and rewards in the world. It's sad, it's unfair, but that's the world we live in. So please don't look for the wrong form of fairness. Fairness of listening, fairness of respect, not necessarily fairness of outcome. Now, this topic actually comes as a subtopic of the scale your team and scale the inbound side of your sales process, which is part of our accountability program called the Sales Mastery Program. If you want to know more about that, in the workbook, you've got a link to a free 15-minute phone call with a key founder of our team to actually talk about where is your business now, what are your goals and aspirations, and what are the key roadblocks you've got, either from a management perspective or a motivational perspective or a cultural perspective, or simply from a sales and marketing strategy perspective. Just simply book in for one of your business owners or managers for a 50-minute phone call. We'll give you free tips and advice. You might even qualify to book in for a one-on-one Zoom session with myself, again, free of charge. We want to make sure we're aligned to our future customers. We're happy to help people for free to get them on the right path. We know they'll come back at some point in the future. So take action today to share today's lessons with others. Make sure you take action today to make sure that as a team or as a business, you know how to move forward to minimize conflict disputes afterwards rather than minimizing them up front. We can't minimize them up front. Business is pressured. Business is challenges. There are winners. There are losers. We're constantly measured no matter what's happening with your opposition in your marketplace. So therefore, embrace it and utilize it, and then use our 7-step process to better minimize the negative impact of that and better maximize the positive impact of those things. Once again, I'm 𝗠𝗶হি𝗶𝗺. Reach out to us at the Sales Mastery Company. If you want to grow your business, scale your business, or be more profitable, we'd love to help you. Reach out to us online or book in a scale-up call. And as always, take action. Hello there, 𝗠𝗶hi here again to say thank you for watching this video. As always, I want to implore you to take action and to share the lessons you've learned. Meanwhile, something you could do to help us in our mission to help countless and thousands of small to medium family businesses the world over to be more prosperous, be more confident, and have a greater impact in the causes they support. And that is, of course, comment, like, and subscribe to this YouTube channel and to all of our other videos. And as always, be generous and share this with others. Take action today.